Hey Oz, Planet Australia here. Today's a very special day, isn't it, for everybody in Australia? Because it was Anzac today, Anzac Day, and we had a lot of ceremonies and events. And for the first time in 2 years and a bit, people were allowed to express the way they felt about how they feel about Anzac and the day and what it means, what it represents, and how dear people hold that to their heart from the past, present and future warriors. So I, on Anzac, pause and listen to the air and listen to the birds and the other little things that we take for granted that are in the air, noises, insects, people laughing, talking, giggling, trains going by, cars, people, dogs barking, because all that represents freedom. And to me, that is a beautiful thing, because in other parts of the world they don't hear that. They hear alarms going off and bombs and missiles and noises of such. It wouldn't be a beauty, and it wouldn't be a bird singing and tweeping in the air. So to me, I celebrate Anzac in that respect, and I stop to think about people that fought in the war, the past, and the people that were from the Vietnam War, and the people that will fight in the future wars. And I want to take my respect and how I feel and say thank you to all those great warriors, because without you, we wouldn't have our freedom. We wouldn't have anything. And to me, I think, even though it's the end of the day and Anzac Day comes once a year, we should think about it every day of every year, because we're free, we're safe, we're able to do things in life without restriction. We've had to remodify ourselves through the COVID, but apart from that, we have still our nation, our people, our courage, our strength, and that's what makes me feel proud as an Australian. And today, well, I was at a ceremony. I said thank you to a soldier that had fought in the Vietnam War, an elderly gent, and that made me feel beautiful, because he really is, not that he was, he still is a warrior to me. And that's what makes me feel as an Australian. And I think every person out there that is an Australian that lives in Oz would feel that way too. That's what Anzac represents to every Australian that lives here. Our freedom, our liberty, choice, our love, the way we live, who we are as people. And as Australians, we do stand to every challenge there is. We rise to it, no matter what. And I just want to say, I'm concerned with the rhetoric that Peter Dutton is now saying, that we should prepare for war. Now, his rhetoric is scary because you tend to think, is that a question or is it a point he's trying to get across in his rhetoric? Because every Australian that celebrated Anzac today would be asking themselves, and especially the warriors, the soldiers, the people now, the future warriors, and the old diggers would be asking themselves what's to expect next. And the rhetoric that Peter Dutton talks about with the tensions of Russia and China, and how he views how it's going to take place is very concerning. And as we all know, with what's happening over in Ukraine now, is leading to a concern that there could be a World War III, because NATO is trying to support people there in that war, but they're being tied up with what's happened now with the world. And for us to realise that NATO is in a catch-22 situation, the world's in a catch-22 situation. Ukraine is trying to get out of their catch-22 situation, but they need help and support by NATO. So with that, NATO helps, and what countries support, well, you know, at least to say, like Peter Dutton's rhetoric, do we prepare for war? And that's, you know, you got to ask yourself now as an Australian, you know, we rise to every challenge there is to rise to. So if war was to come to Australian soil, I know I would pledge my allegiance as an Australian. And I think every Australian that hears this tube would say that they pledge their allegiance to Australia, as I do. Mind, body and soul, like the great warriors from the past, present and future. But I would pledge my allegiance. And that's where I think it's got to lead us now to think about that. Because with the rhetoric that Peter Dutton is now saying, what is it? Is it a question or is it a point he's trying to get across? Because people would now be wondering. But anyway, Oz, that's all I wanted to say. Get that little him-ha niggle off my chest. Because think about it. Anzac's been and gone, but we should never forget about it. Every day we live in our freedoms. Every day we have our choice. Every day we're able to walk our soil on Australian soil free. as free people, with birds singing in the air, with the sun shining. Our soil is our soil. We are Australian. We stand strong and we rise to every challenge. And that would be with your allegiance to Australia. So it's the end of the day and the end of the Anzac Day until next year. But please, go with this thought that at the end of the day, and you're silent and you're alone, think about the war that is now taking place in Ukraine and what Russia wants and what China wants. And we must think about the rhetoric that Peter Dutton is now saying. Is it a question or is there a point to what he's saying? And if so, are we, will we, can we, are we able to prepare as a nation like other nations do? Should that be a wise move for the Australian government? Because there would be a lot of people scared now with the rhetoric that Peter Dutton is putting out. So please, government, if you hear this, talk to the Australian people and explain what's going on. So I'm going to leave the last note on the last post, because we'll never know what those diggers, the people that lost their lives, really did on that day. We can only imagine. So please, bow your head to hear the last post, to pay respects. Take care, Oz.